Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I said I'd do another one if there was enough stuff. And you know what? I'm starting to think maybe these kind of midweek ones are actually quite a helpful thing. Mainly for me to get stuff out of my brain, but also perhaps for other people as well. It's never going to be as long as the video at the weekend, thank the Lord. It's going to be a shorter one. I think it's just helpful to cover various things that turn up during the week in between games. Then I don't have to waffle on about after the match stuff, which is obviously mainly about match analysis. And even sometimes I'll forget about stuff that happened in the week and I'll get people underneath asking, well, what about this? You didn't even touch on that. And this way, it's going to be a shorter video, hopefully around the 30-40 minute mark, maybe even less than that. Depends, how much we have to get through each week. But I just thought it might be a little kind of easy way to, I guess, have everything you could possibly want to talk about Spurs covered over the course of a week. Then I don't have to try and cram it into an already, very long post-weekend talk. So I can just have this smaller chat in the middle. But as always, if you want it, fantastic. If you don't, I won't hold it against you. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to watch or listen to it. I just thought it might be helpful for some, especially in days like today, where we've had the news about the season ticket prices. They've gone up, or they are going to go up from next season as well. It's going to go up by 6%. I don't know why I made that noise. It's going to go up by 6%. So I had to do a creepy horror voice for it. Sounded a bit Freddy Krueger-esque, didn't it? 6%. It's one of those where I don't know about you, but I think I saw it. It was coming. I figured it was coming. I noticed a lot of other clubs have been doing it. A lot of clubs did it last year. I think only 3 clubs didn't put up their season ticket prices last year. One of them was Spurs. So I kind of figured this year that couldn't probably happen again. Who was it last year? I think I'd written them down somewhere. Oh yeah, Spurs, Chelsea and Brentford were the only 3 that didn't put up their season ticket prices last year. So I kind of figured, okay, it's coming. I don't know what I expected, whether it was going to be 6% or not. What I did at least appreciate this time was that they said it in the release about it all, in the story they put up on their webpage about it all. They actually said they're going up by 6%. Sometimes with Spurs announcements about price increases, you have to kind of work out what they are. They don't actually tell you. You have to look at them and compare them to previous years. So the fact they actually were quite transparent about that, it's like, okay, right, that's something. But obviously it doesn't make it any more palatable. Of course not. I'm very aware that I'm in a very privileged position that when I report on matches, I get to go as part of my kind of license as being a member of the media. So I don't have to pay these season ticket prices, which, I know are going to be very difficult for a lot of people. So I've got incredible sympathy for people that have to do that. I do always think it's a little bit cheeky when at the start of these announcements on their website, they thank everyone for their support and their loyalty before telling them they've got to pay more money. It's not a great look overall. Of course it's not. And also the club accounts are coming at the end of this month, or before the end of this month as well. So obviously if they're very I guess in a good way, if there's a lot of profit there or huge revenue, whatever, which there should be with the stadium kind of, it's meant to do what it's meant to do, I guess more people are going to come back then and say, oh, well, hello, how much are you earning? And you still want to kind of get us to contribute. And I completely understand the angle of, it's not like the product on the pitch is the most amazing thing at this moment in time. It's not a trophy-winning product, so how can you justify that hike in price? So I get it. I absolutely get it. Would I say it's a better product than it was last year? Yes. Yes, it is. Even, with some iffy first halves in the last couple of weeks, I still do think it's a better product. Is it one that, is worthy of the stadium yet? No. I would absolutely say that as well. I think, as I say, it's never nice to see a price hike on season ticket prices. Absolutely not. I think the thing that's probably I find even less palatable this time around is the eventual removal of the seniors' concessions. I don't like that at all. I get that. I've spoken to some people, older season ticket holders, who do admit 50% is a lot. That's their discount. It is a big old whack off a ticket. And I guess what Spurs are saying is that's unsustainable. With the amount of senior concessions that they're having to process, I guess is what they're coming at. But I've also seen suggestions which I would understand as being a better one of just maybe a less discount, a 25% discount. I don't know whether legality, can you do that? Can you have less of a discount? I don't know. But the actual complete removal of them seems a bit like, unless I'm missing something, that seems a big thing to do. And that's something I'm not massively on board with at all. Not that I have to be on board with anything, I don't have any sway in anything. But when I say I figured it was coming as well, is because I think it's just going to be something that happens across the board for most clubs. If they didn't, some might not, because they put them up by so much last year, perhaps. But on the whole, over this 2-year period, I think you're going to see a lot of them do it. Arsenal, I spoke to our Arsenal reporter, Kaya, and he was telling me about Arsenal have raised theirs by 4% in the upper tier, 6% in the lower tier at the Emirates. But, and he explained this, with more home games in the Champions League and other variables like certain cup games not being part of the ticket, it essentially means it is actually around a 10% increase as well. So a 10% increase, obviously, I guess that's more. You could argue back, quite rightly, well, Arsenal have probably had more to give their fans in the last couple of seasons. They've had title challenges, they've been going for it in the Champions League as well this season. So, is there more of a justification behind what they're charging? And don't worry, we're going to talk about demand and supply and all of that, because there are different aspects to this, absolutely. So Arsenal are, even Everton I know have just, but Guesty has told me today that Everton have put up their season ticket prices. He knows his has gone up. What I would say with Everton, there's a demand to be there at the last season at Goodison Park, like there would have been at White Hart Lane, of course, back in the day. And then also to make sure you're securing your place, I suppose, at their new stadium, Everton, as well. So it's a little bit of differing circumstances there as well. And obviously they are in a bit of problems as well, Everton. Man U are going up by 5% next season. So not 6%, but 5%. Don't know what Villa's are going to be. I was trying to look at all the ones around the top four. Don't know what Villa's are going to be, but I know they went up by 15% last year, which was a big thing. That made a real kind of... People were not happy about that. 15%. That's a hell of a big increase. I guess they've, in a way, been rewarded by improved football this year. Obviously, under Unai Emery, they're doing very well, playing in the is it Conference League, Europa League. It's gone out of my head, which it is now. So many European competitions now that just making sure I get it. And I know people are shouting at me right now on the screen. I know exactly. It is the Conference League. I figured it was, but I didn't want to say it. First leg of the round of 16. So Villa's went up by 15% last season. So whether they do again this season is another thing, or whether, I guess if they were to be able to get into Champions League, then maybe they could justify it with that, a bigger product, although I know they're not included in the cost. Who else did I look up? Newcastle's have gone up, although they've got a funny situation at Newcastle, because you might remember Mike Ashley, before he headed off, did a deal for some season ticket holders. They got this kind of long-term deal where they stayed at a certain price for years to come. So I think some of them have got 2 years left on their season ticket deals, but they are definitely going to jump up, certainly when that's done, and they would do this season if they didn't have it. West Ham's went up last season by 4 to 8%, depending on where you were sitting. It's one of these scenarios where it doesn't look great. Could, in an ideal world, Spurs not transfer these rising costs that they've got to their fans? Of course. Do they, as a business, I guess, is this just the way it works? Sadly, I think so, especially when you see the rest of the world and prices going up. But that also, is that another reason for not putting them up? To try and be that kind of bastion of kind of hope that while everything else is going up, maybe your trip to the football isn't going to go up. I don't know. I just don't think, unfortunately, the world works like that, and ultimately they are businesses, as much as we'd like them not to be. I put out a question on Twitter, X, whatever you're calling it nowadays, about opinions on the season ticket increase, and 99% were obviously very disappointed. Some people saying it's disgraceful, things like that, and I get it where it all comes from. I'm certainly not going to fight for the reasons behind it, because ultimately, like I just said, there is always a way of not having to do it. Tell you what, I'll explain the Spurs point of view from their own statement. Don't don't know whether I've managed to do this slightly wonky again. The camera, I don't know. It's going to, doesn't matter. Just tilt your head a bit if it's not all that way. Yeah. So Spurs' statement on it says, football is not immune to the rising cost of goods and services across the board, and we continue to look at all options to minimise ticket price increases while absorbing the vast majority of costs. In the 5 years since the stadium opened in April 2019, there's only been one season ticket price increase of 1.5%. There has, however, been a significant increase in matchday costs outside of our control, such as utilities, rates and consumables, along with a need to continue to operate on a sustainable basis. For the 2024-25 season, ticket prices will increase by 6%. So, if you're wondering what that means in terms of actual costs and prices, the cheapest season ticket at Spurs will now be £856 for adults and £428 for seniors, £642 for young adults and £428 for juniors. Now, there are 15 different price bands across the... I looked at all of the season tickets you could possibly get. So those vary in prices, all the way from £856. They kind of go up in increments of about £100, about that each time, until you get roughly, sometimes it's less than that, because the most expensive one, which is an 1882 season ticket, is £2,367, which is mad. It's crazy, isn't it, what they are? Obviously, that's... that won't include, that's not talking about boxes, things like that. That is, I think, just a purely a season ticket. So, yeah, where that sits among the most expensive, I think it's Fulham weirdly have a more expensive one. I swear someone told me they had a £3,000 one once. I could be wrong. I'm not putting that out there as a definitive statement, but I feel like Spurs aren't weirdly the top, but they're certainly got to be up and around there. And as people quite rightly say, amazing stadium, terrific experience in terms of going to a stadium, but in terms of the product that is at the centre of it all, the football, it's not up there meriting the huge cost of a season ticket. Absolutely not yet. Hopefully next season, that'd be great, but not yet. So, Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust, they put out there, as they always do, they will have had a discussion with Spurs about this, they'll have given their objections to it. Spurs will have taken some on board, some not on board. And so the Trust put out their statement today, which, reading very quickly, because it's not a massively long one, but I want to get kind of the other side of it in there. Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust is dismayed by the club's plans to increase season tickets by 6%. We oppose any season ticket increase and the removal or reduction of senior concessions, both of which are also opposed by the Fan Advisory Board. Obviously, they don't like my reduction idea either. That's only if you can't do the other one I was saying. Trust board members met with the club on February 21st when we were presented with the season ticket proposals for the first time. During this meeting, we disagreed on several areas, and as a result of our input, changes were made. It'd be interesting to know what those changes were. We do, however, remain hugely disappointed to see season tickets increase by 6%. Discounts for senior season tickets and matchday tickets remain unchanged for 24-25, but lead to the complete removal of new senior concessions from 25-26. This is unacceptable. The club does say this is so difficult to say. The club does say new senior season ticket holders who are turning 65 for next season will receive the current 50% discount if they are in a concession area, but this will be of little comfort to those supporters impacted by these changes from 2025 to 26. The discount for seniors. God, if you just want me to have a struggle all season, just get me to say senior season tickets. The discount for senior season tickets will also be reduced by 5% each season for the next 5 years, meaning that from 29-30, senior season tickets will cost senior supporters 25% more than today. This increase cannot be justified. Okay, so ignore everything I said at the start. They are lessening that discount. I really should have read to the bottom of the statement, which I thought I had, and I completely missed that. That's... Yeah, okay. Right, I'll tell you what, I'll read the rest of what they've said. It kind of explains it more. The club's justification for the 6% increase are twofold. It has only raised prices once before in the last 5 years by 1.5%, and because there has been a significant increase in matchday costs. In our opinion, neither justification holds water. The club says the number of senior concession season tickets has risen to almost 4 times the number at White Hart Lane, and that the increase is not sustainable. We say these changes pull the rug out from under the feet of pensioners after years of loyal support. I must admit, that must feel rubbish when you've kind of supported the club for that long and you're expecting to kind of be rewarded with, okay, I'm getting to that older age now, my income's going to be less, but the club are going to look after me, they're going to cut down my season ticket prices, and it's like, yeah, maybe not. Yeah, it's difficult. I'd be interested to know what people think about that. Let me know in the comments, because obviously how I started that off about the reducing of the discount, that is the case. That is what they are doing. So, yeah. Apologies to anyone that got annoyed at the start of the video, only for me to learn as I'm going. My own information that I should have used for the start of it. Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust believes a fuller discussion at the beginning of this process with the club would have led to a more effective input and increased the prospect of an outcome with wider support. Yeah. This is the crazy thing about demand and supply, not demand and supply. Demand and supply, and this is the thing. Every game I'm at, I do a little tweet just to tell everyone the attendance. It's not the most amazingly important thing in the world. It's just one of those traditions that I've got into, and I think weirdly some people do kind of keep an eye out for it. And it is pretty much 62,000 every week without fail, and that's why I guess they're in a scenario where Spurs can say, okay, look, we've got rising costs, we're going to put up season ticket prices, because like it or lump it, if you say no, don't want your season ticket, guess what? Someone else is going to come in and take that ticket. So in your face. I'm sure that's not exactly how they're saying it, but you know what I mean? This is the whole aspect of supply and demand, that there is a lot of demand for it. And that is the problem, isn't it? I can understand absolutely people's frustrations. And I can understand people saying hit them where it hurts and all this sort of stuff. I get it. But there are a mass of people just waiting to go to that stadium. And look, it's difficult. I know we're kind of living in difficult times when prices are going up. The money coming in isn't matching that. And then suddenly, just one of your hobbies that you enjoy going to every weekend. I mean, even watching it. I mean, I was looking at my subscriptions for various things that I have to pay for, like sports and satellite and all that. That's coming to an end, my term on that, and even that is jumping up to ridiculous amounts, and you start to kind of think, so much a month. And so I can understand, with a season ticket on top of that as well, and I wonder how many people work it out. Is it just cheaper to watch it on telly? But then the clubs get the money from the telly as well, so they're getting their money either way, because they're going to get the money from the telly, and then someone else will take that season ticket. It's quite I guess a bit of a depressing circle, is that it can be allowed to continue like that. Look, I guess if I'm Spurs, I'm saying this is only the second time we've put it up in whatever it is, 5 years. Other clubs are also putting theirs up, some a little bit more than that in recent years. They were the only one of 3 that didn't last year. I guess this is all the things they'd say, but it doesn't really make it any more palatable. And it is something that without fail, that if you put out there that you're raising your prices, nobody's going to be happy with that. They're just not. It's quite interesting when you see fans from different countries as well. It goes different ways. You've got American sports fans who support Spurs. They will look at it and go like, what? It's like, do you know how much it costs to see sports in America? And I get that. It is very expensive. As someone that has looked to try to get to some games in America, it is extremely or incredibly expensive to go and watch sport in America. So for them, they're a bit like, it's not actually that expensive for us. But then you'll go to, let's say, fans in Europe, like Germany and Scandinavia, and they will say, what? It's like, that is incredible prices. But then I guess that's the Premier League as a product as well. I remember back in July last year, I did a piece on the general matchday ticket prices going up. And I included a quote which probably all Premier League clubs absolutely hate. Uli Hoeneß, who was then the Bayern Munich president. This was a quote from about a decade ago, and he was asked about Bayern Munich and when they decided to set the ticket prices for Bayern's games. he said back then, we could charge more than £104. Let's say we charge £300. We'd get £2 million more in income. But what's £2 million to us? In a transfer discussion, you argue about that sum for 5 minutes. But the difference between £104 and £300 is huge for a fan. We don't think the fans are cows who you milk. Football has got to be for everybody. That's the biggest difference between us and England. And yeah, it is. I mean, that's a long time ago he said that, but it does probably still apply today. I'd imagine the German season tickets are still probably among the cheapest around. But yeah, again, it's about the product, isn't it? It's the Premier League. It is something that is viewed across the world. It is the biggest league in the world. It is, and I don't think I'm just being kind of biased in saying that as someone that reports on the Premier League. It is, and it is, and I suppose some people might suggest, it costs you the same or more to go to a concert, which you may go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium nowadays to watch. But again, none of this makes it any more palatable. So yeah, I absolutely understand all the frustrations, 100%. I do. But while that stadium is absolutely packed out week in, week out, kind of sadly, they can kind of charge what they want. And I guess the other thing they would say is, but then they have to be held to this as well, that if you want the club to spend bigger amounts of money on transfers, then I guess season ticket prices and games are going to cost money. And if they cost more, then yes, you want to see that reflected in what they're spending. Same with, when I write stories about, I don't know, the Spurs, for example, are now currently looking potentially at applying to Haringey Council to be able to increase the non-football events at the stadium from 16 to 30. I don't think they're actually going to do 30, but it's there, so the restriction could be that if they wanted to. And I know some people hate that. They hate the idea of anything other than football being played there. But I would say the flip side to that is, rather than just having a stadium sitting there completely empty when Spurs are not playing in it, I've always felt, regardless of where it was, White Hart Lane, whatever, that you use that stadium and you bring in millions for these things. When you've got the likes of Pink, Pearl Jam, Beyonce, Gaga, Guns N' Roses, whoever are there, that is bringing millions in. The NFL games, the boxing, the rugby, even the F1 stuff, F1 Drive now underneath the stadium. It's like, I've never had an issue with that. As long as the money goes back into making the football club a more successful outfit. I can understand, when people think like it's going straight to the owners and stuff like that, and that's not the idea of it. The idea of it is that it sustains the football club, and it also, I guess, helps them when other clubs are a bit stuffed with financial fair play. Spurs have that huge revenue coming in, which is driving them, and we'll see that in these new accounts, hopefully. But then I guess you could go back to the original point, and could you not have then, used all of these concerts to ease the burden on the fans? But then, look, if they go out in the summer, spend big money on players, I guess, whether they spent, was it 200 million or something? I can't remember what we worked it out as being last summer, if you include this winter as well, with the various prices, Van der Ven, Madison, Johnson, Vicario, Dragashin as well. Obviously, they paid the Porro and Decky money as well, and others that I'm probably forgetting as well, even little ones like Ashley Phillips and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, if the money is going towards that, and maybe that will be reflected in the next set of accounts, or maybe it wouldn't. No, I don't think it will, but I think what they often do is they'll talk about their spending, and I would imagine after a season ticket price hike, you will have a section, which they sometimes do. They talk about what's happened in the last financial year up to, it will be whatever it is, end of April last year, and then they will probably talk about what they spent in the summer as well, just to say, look, we're spending money. But yeah, look, I understand it, absolutely not backing the decision in any way at all. It's like, but I mean, look, it's interesting. It literally just popped up on my kind of Twitter feed as someone saying, this is, I'm name checking. I mean, he's put it on public, so hopefully he doesn't mind me reading it out. It just happened to come in at exactly the time I'm recording this, so it was interesting. This is the first time I've seen a non-particularly outraged reply, and it says it's Chris Moriart. Personally struggling with the outrage. Worked out it's about £60 more a year for me, or £3.50 a match. But for the club, it could be an extra £4 million a year. I wonder how many moaning about the increase are in the just pay the money mob. Interesting. I generally didn't know how that tweet ended. I just saw the start and I could see it wasn't a annoyed one. That literally just popped up in my notifications as I was doing that. That is the first one I've seen. It has been pretty much people annoyed about it, which is understandable. If I was paying something, like I've just said about my a subscription with Sky and all this sort of stuff, just finding out that that's jumping up by about 40-50 quid a month. It's mad. So yeah, I get it. I absolutely do get it. But yeah, it's one of those where I don't think people would begrudge it so much if they have an amazing end to the season in the summer, that they see that they pay big money, bring in players that are going to really help Postecoglou push on, and that's all great. And then I think next year you kind of don't begrudge it as much, but that's the key. They've got to make the product they're selling worth the money they're charging, and that's the key thing for me. So that's really it on season tickets. What else we got? We had Richarlison and a funny little moment that came out. When sometimes players do little either podcasts or YouTube stuff with people from back home rather than the UK media, the club just don't really have any control. And I think, or they're not there to maybe shut down a question or whatever. So we had this week a Brazilian YouTuber called Fred. He's got lots of names, but his actual kind of, as Brazilians do, they like to have one name. And his name's Fred. I think he used to be a futsal player and on Brazilian Big Brother and things like that. And he's got this. He works for his YouTube channel called Desimpedidos. I hope I pronounced that right. So he went to the stadium after the Palace game and spoke to Emerson Royal, who then invited him back to his house to interview him and Richarlison, who doesn't do a lot of interviews, asked him back, all three of them, and I think families as well, and they played a bit of football in the garden and stuff. And during their discussions in what looked like Emerson's kitchen, Emerson let out a little story about something that happened behind the scenes at Spurs, which, well, I'm intrigued to know your thoughts on it. Again, this is another one I'm asking for your opinions in the comments, because I'm fascinated to see how people view this. So, last season, you might remember, under Antonio Conte, it wasn't really working out for Richarlison. He only scored one Premier League goal last season. He's had a terrific by comparison season this year. 10 goals, 3 assists, 22 Premier League matches. It's been a really good season for him. It has. I think there's still more for him to come from him, but definitely it's a real big step in the right direction. But last year, he was struggling a bit with that 60 million price tag and everything. So Emerson revealed that there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, which brought an awkward moment for Richarlison. I'll read out exactly Emerson's quotes for you so we get it right. So Richarlison arrived late at the meeting on the day of the game, and the guy, he means Conte, said, "Do you have something to say to the team? Do you want to apologise to the team?" And he's laughing, Emerson, as he told us. He said he asked the other guys who arrived late too. The guys said, "No, just sorry." Then I don't know what got into him, as in Richarlison. He was supposed to apologise to the group and to Conte, right? And then he said, I think I need more minutes of game time, he means. I think he understood it, that the guy asked if he had something to talk about. So then he started to say that formation he played in was beep, insert swear word there, and he said a couple of other things. So essentially, Conte has said to Richarlison, "Have you got anything to say?" And Richarlison's gone, yeah, all right. And he said all the things he wanted to say, rather than Conte actually meant, "Would you like to say sorry?" And Richarlison explained it further. He said, "I came out saying everything that came to mind. I need more minutes. This formation is no good. I haven't adapted. This formation is beep." And then he repeated that in English. He said it in Portuguese first, and then he said it in English. He said, "I just started talking, and then the guys behind me started laughing. And I said, 'What am I doing here?' I didn't understand what he'd asked. I started saying what I had already rehearsed." So you can just imagine Richarlison in front of his mirror saying, "Yeah, Conte, I hate this. It's all your fault. I'm playing rubbish." And so he comes out with all of this that he's ready to say, and actually that wasn't what he wanted him to say whatsoever. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to see what Conte's face was like when that was said. I can imagine it was, something something a little bit. Well, having seen his face after the Southampton game when he absolutely erupted, and that was his last ever kind of input at Tottenham Hotspur, I can imagine he didn't take it particularly well. I mean, some managers actually do encourage players to vent their frustrations and they kind of get it all out there. I don't really feel like Conte was that kind of guy. So yeah, I'm intrigued to know what people think about that, because there's two sides to it. There is the side of it was just a misunderstanding, a bit of a mix-up. There's the side that maybe Richarlison was a little bit professional in that. And then there's the other side, which I obviously saw on social media when I put the story out there, people going, yeah, you told him, you told Conte he's rubbish and all this sort of stuff. They didn't say it like that. That was a really weird voice. I don't know where I went with that. So yeah, where do I sit? I sit somewhere probably... I probably think it's a little bit unprofessional in a main setting with everyone else there. I would probably lean towards that. I think you could tell Conte that in a one-to-one meeting. I don't know if you say it in front of the squad, but then he thought he was being asked to do that. So you've kind of got to cut him that slack in that regard. Leicester City... EFL statement as we're doing this. What is this? Oh, I thought Leicester City had been... Sorry, just checking whether there were any more points, because that would be quite a big thing if they were. Closes it under... Rules currently written. Oh, right, it sounds like they are not going to have any issues there at all. I thought that was another one that was going to end up... This is the thing now, there's going to be so many clubs that are going to get in trouble with these things. I should say, for balance, after reading out a notification of a tweet that someone was saying they didn't think it was that bad for them. Literally the ones I'm just scrolling down my screen right now. It's a disgrace. Greed as usual. All clubs are saying nothing new. I'll probably get priced out of watching Spurs the next 4 to 5 years. So just to make it sure, I wasn't just like, ooh, there's a nice tweet. I wasn't absolutely doing that. It just literally popped up on my screen, and there's a lot more other ones. Always wary of condoning a price increase. I absolutely do not. All I'm saying is I just expected it to come. So yeah, so that's Richarlison. Yeah, quite a funny little story. I don't think we'll be able to kind of get anything out of Postecoglou on that, because he doesn't like to talk about what happened before him. But yeah, Richarlison is he's a character. Everyone who talks about Richarlison is like, they all said, yep, that's pretty much Richarlison. You can imagine him saying that, completely misunderstanding it. I mean, the guy has been in England for 7-8 years and still doesn't really speak English particularly well. He's a funny guy, very popular guy. Character is the best word to describe him, I think. I'd love to interview him one day, but he doesn't speak good enough English, and my Portuguese is non-existent, so I certainly can't talk about that. I could maybe do it in broken Italian with my Duolingo Italian. What else have we got? Other little bits of housekeeping in this video. Understand there's going to potentially, more than likely, be a pre-season friendly in Scotland ahead of the Asia Tour, which is going to be 3 games. Looks like there's going to be a game in Scotland before that, which is interesting. Normally, I think the year before that, wasn't it? I think it was, they went to Rangers, played them. It'd be intriguing to see whether it's Glasgow again, whether there's some kind of Celtic thing there as part of the Postecoglou deal. I don't know. But, and also the fact they're going before. I feel like the Rangers one was a little bit later that year. I guess that'll be in that period then, while you've still got some of the Euros players and Copa America players away. So it could be a bit more of a, not a second string, well, I guess, just missing some of those international players. So, it'd be interesting to know what kind of team they can put out there. But it's all part of Postecoglou's kind of preparations for next season. We're still waiting to find out exactly what's happening with the post-season trip. Obviously, Melbourne heavily mooted as a destination. I'd imagine it would have to be quite a quick pit stop almost, because it's the end of the season and no player really wants to be kind of doing that, especially when they've got international commitments a few days afterwards as well. That's a long way to go for a very short amount of time, but yeah, we'll see. I'd imagine you'd have to kind of be announcing that sooner rather than later. Same with the pre-season tour. I can't imagine that's too far off. I think it's normally end of March, April-ish, we start to find out about that sort of stuff officially. Like I say, we know now it's South Korea is going to be part of that Asia tour. Bayern and a K-League team as the two matches currently looks like it's going to be. So yeah, we'll see. Very quick loan roundup. Even Perisic back on the bench. For I know he technically is not going to be part of Spurs beyond this summer, but I just thought that was nice to know. Back on the bench, didn't play, but that's back incredibly early. I would say, as soon as I kind of put that in my report the other day, I had some people saying, well, he should have stayed at Spurs then. I would say the difference between being fit for a Croatian League game and being fit for the Premier League are probably two different things. He has also been called up by the Croatia squad, funny enough, for the end of the end of the month. They're playing a little friendly tournament called the W Cup in the United Arab Emirates from the end of March. So yeah, whether at what point his coach at Hajduk, Mislav Koroglan, said he expressed his desire to be on the bench to be with the team, so that's positive. That was they won 1-0 against Istra. So yeah, keep an eye on him, and hopefully, best of luck to him. But obviously not going to be a Spurs player anyway. Alejo Veliz for Sevilla got more minutes. He came on, made his home debut, 86th minute against Real Sociedad. I didn't realise quite the level and experience of players he's playing with there. I forgot Sergio Ramos is there. Jesus Navas is the captain. Getting plenty of experienced players around him to help him. But at the moment, still little cameo sub-appearances towards the end of the games. Joe Rodon, he played last night. They beat Stoke 1-0, clean sheet, obviously, full 90. They drew 1-1 with Huddersfield. They played Chelsea in midweek in the FA Cup, obviously lost as well. He kind of has given a bit of a hint about potentially staying at Leeds if they were to come in for him next summer. Obviously, they've got Connor Roberts, Dan James and Ethan Ampadu there at the moment. It's a bit of a Welsh contingent. He said for Welsh YouTube channel, I've forgotten their name now, but he said, just playing, of course, is what everyone wants, but I think all of us together, it would be a really nice kind of journey if we did get there to the Premier League with the journeys we've all been on. Now it's all led us to this moment. I just think it would be great for the collective as well, all of us to be playing together in the Premier League. So probably his strongest hint that he'd like to stay at Leeds, but it's on them getting up to the Premier League, and it's on them putting up the money as well, because, I would have said if you'd have sold him last summer, you would have probably looked at about 10, 12 million. Seems to be reports about under 20 million now. He's had that good a season. He's been superb for Leeds. So yeah, keep an eye on kind of what happens with Joe Rodon next summer. He could be a guy that brings in a bit of money for Spurs to kind of put elsewhere. Sergio Reguilon, mixed week for him. Played as Brentford lost 4-2 to West Ham on Monday night, but then drew 2-2 at home against Chelsea. He was quite busy and involved in that. He was involved in the Ivan Toney goal. Was it Ivan Toney? No, sorry. Mads Rosliv. It was Toney that put the cross in. And then he actually could have put the game boy on doubts, but he put a header against the post. Tongi is back from a muscle injury. Tongi Ondembele, for all of those wondering what's up with him. Back from a muscle injury, playing just a minute at the weekend against Besiktas. Not great for him there. 24 appearances for Galatasaray, but only 644 minutes. Jed Spence came off the bench, got almost a half an hour as Genoa lost 2-1 to Inter on Monday night in Serie A. Eric Dyer, as we now know, has triggered his clause to remain at Bayern next season. Not that he would have been at Spurs anyway, because his contract runs out. But certainly I know that would mean Spurs would definitely get money for their loan thing, unless they were going to get it anyway. But certainly, he's now heading there. He made his Champions League debut for them last night as they beat Lazio 3-0. Troy Parrott, a bit of a quiet game for him. He was taken off at half-time. Excelsior Rotterdam struggling a little bit. Like I say, I've said it a load of times. Had a really good season. 10 goal involvements for them in 21 games or so. 7 goals, 3 assists, but they're struggling. And he's not going to get a lot of chances there. So kind of what he can get, he has to take. Jaffett's doing well at Millwall. Neil Harris has gone in there and turned it round. He played, I think, last night, actually. I've got it down here somewhere. Yep, 90 minutes. Millwall drew 1-1 at Blackburn. He also played at the weekend when they beat Watford 1-0, got a clean sheet there. He's been getting quite a bit of praise, says Jaffett. Guesty went to watch Ashley Phillips and a little bit of Alfie Devine. And actually, not at all Alfie Devine. Didn't come off the bench last night. Ashley Phillips played the full 90. They lost 1-0 at Sheffield Wednesday. They lost 2-0 at home to Ipswich at the weekend as well. Both of them came off the bench late on. I mean, Ian Foster, the Plymouth boss, has said that he's trying to rotate his team at the moment with the amount of matches and the young players he felt looked a bit tired. But yeah, Plymouth's having a bit of a sticky patch at the moment, and Alfie Devine's becoming a bit more of a bench player. Ashley Phillips certainly getting some minutes though. Matthew Craig, he's getting lots of minutes for Doncaster Rovers. They drew 1-1 at Bradford last night. They lost 3-1 at Walsall at the weekend. Loads of minutes for him. You might remember recently he got his first goal and first assist as a senior pro, so that was very cool for him. What else we got? Josh Keeley. Josh Keeley played last night for Barnet and had a special guest or two in the crowd. So Barnet, he kept a clean sheet. Barnet beat Rochdale 2-0 in the National League, and in the crowd were Guglielmo Vicario and the goalkeeping coach Rob Birch. They'd gone to watch him, which is just brilliant. I love that. It just shows what a guy Vicario is. You know, for his Tuesday night, just to head off and watch one of the young keepers in action. And it also shows his bond with Rob Birch as well, I think, to kind of the two of them go to check on Josh Keeley, who's doing very well at Barnet. This is his first taste of senior, or real sustained taste of senior football. Oh, interesting. THFC Flags have decided to cancel their tifo against Man City. Interesting. Yeah, that's fair enough. Absolutely right. I can understand that. It's against the senior concession season tickets. I guess, it's when I talk about the senior season tickets, I am kind of forgetting. I guess it's stopping new people coming in and doing that, isn't it? It's those people who currently has it. Yeah, no, so I think I was actually right at the start of the video in a way, but it's just new people that are not going to be able to get that. Yeah, it's been a long day. Sorry. Vicario going to watch Josh Keeley, which I thought was very cool. He recently did a little bit of a clinic, didn't he, with the young goalkeepers as well. So he's very much integrating himself with the young keepers at the club, and feels like a guy that's going to be sticking around for a while, which is very nice and very much welcome as well. One of the little bits, Nathan Gardner, I saw that Training Ground Guru reported that he's back as head of sports science at Spurs. Which is interesting because I've seen him quite a bit in recent weeks and this season, walking around the corridors at Spurs or around the training ground. So presumably he's just been around, but it kind of wasn't made official. Because he'd been there for a long time. He was there for 15 years. I think he was the guy that Andros Townsend had a bit of a to-do with after one match and kind of signalled the end of his time under Pochettino, Andros. He left in 2020 to go as part of Scott Parker's team as a first-team coach because he's got this funny thing, which is quite unusual, Nathan Gardner, as they write here at Training Ground Guru, is that he's qualified as a sports scientist, physio, but also a coach because he's got a sports science degree from Loughborough University, a physiotherapy degree at King's College, and holds a UEFA A licence as well. What a clever guy. Fair play. He was head of sports science between 2012 to 2018, and his final role at Spurs was technical coordinator and head of sports science, fitness and conditioning. and this time he replaces Sam Pooley, who is leaving the club after a decade. So maybe he came back as a kind of a ready to take over kind of thing. What else? I saw little bits about Antonio Nusa, if that's of any help. One of my colleagues in the Norwegian media flagged it up to me. Ronny Delia, the Club Bruges coach, was talking about him. You might remember Antonio Nusa was this player that Spurs were trying hard to get in the summer. January, and then he ended up going to, or was going to go to Brentford, and then he had some issue with the medical. So he was fine, and there was a lot of stuff about him being fine. But actually, he was left out of their squad for their Conference League match against Molde. And Ronny Delia said he's had problems with his thigh muscles. We tried to get him going, but he had a setback. Now he's been out for almost 2 weeks, and it's challenging for him and us. We have to do everything we can to gradually build him up again. He's had a troubled season. It goes up and down for him. I feel it's important to say that the picture in Belgium is quite the same as it is in Norway, that he's a wonder boy who can handle anything. But when he was asked about, I don't know if the man isn't quite the same as it was in Norway. But yeah, he was asked about returning to the national team and becoming number one with Haaland together, and he said that is not the truth. He's 18 years old, soon to be 19. He's incredibly talented, but he needs time to reach his full potential. His highest level is incredibly high, but his lowest is still low. At the same time, he's had problems coping with the volume that comes with being a professional footballer at Club Bruges. He says, we train hard, there are tough matches, he has a long way to go, a fantastic boy, a huge talent, I know he'll be very, very good, but this season has been very up and down for him. It's interesting, isn't it? It's he says he'll be back in training next week with the team, but this is the guy that Club Brugge were looking for, around £30 million or so, and I think that was what he was going to end up going to Brentford for all in, and just shows very much a work in progress. Kind of the idea of the old classic, I guess, as that tweet mentioned earlier, pay the money. It doesn't always kind of make sense to do that, I suppose. So just looking very quickly ahead to this weekend. Aston Villa, of course, on Sunday. Villa play tomorrow night against Ajax. My former colleague, Jonathan Veal, who used to cover Spurs with me, I've seen that he's in Amsterdam covering that game. He covers a lot of kind of Villa games, or he's going to anyway this season. So, neither of us have been there, the Amsterdam Arena, since 2019. Decent night, that. Not too shabby. I'm intrigued to see how that affects Villa. I'm intrigued to see what Spurs team or squad we have available at the weekend. I looked at a training video earlier and some pics. Not anything of Porro could see, or Richarlison. Obviously, Richarlison kind of came out this week saying that he'll be back for the next game. We'll see. Just to kind of stick with those tweets, Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust have put out at the moment a couple of these tweets. Surely they realise that older people rarely go to every match. Any tickets sold in exchange they can get back for full price if they stop ticket share. Maybe they just want a stadium of rich corporate and alpha males. Thank you so much. With my mum gone, Spurs is now even more important to me. The club meant the world to mum too. I'm so upset I don't feel any love from the club. I don't feel wanted. I can barely afford it now. On a pension without concession will be impossible. That is atrocious. It's the worst news in a long time. Price up means can't go to see Spurs as often as has been afforded going so far. The club has broken my heart. Stopping senior citizen concessions on season tickets. And then same here. Sad face. Guess they don't want oldies unless they're rich. So the senior kind of season ticket thing is going to be an interesting one to see how that rolls on, and whether the club kind of what they're going to say about that. I'm kind of back on tomorrow, so I might have to ask around about that and see what they're going to do about that. Yeah. So there you go, really. That was it. It was a shorter video. It ended up being a little bit longer because I had a kind of went into the ticket price thing in a bit more depth than I'd kind of originally planned to. So, I think that's it. Apologies if I missed out on anything. I was going to maybe see if there was any little questions in the underneath the last one, but to be honest, I kind of wanted this to be a bit of a shorter one. I didn't really want it to get towards the hour mark, which is getting towards. But yeah, so there you go. Just a little kind of mini midweek look over the Spurs news, any little updates, and hopefully we've got some positive stuff at the weekend to talk about. Spurs win that's a big crunch game. Let's see what happens, and hopefully see many of you up there. Please do say hello if you see me heading up on the train or around Villa Park, and fingers crossed. So yeah, right, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Goodbye.